Welcome to Dead to the Co., a Dead and Company podcast. I'm your host, Chris. That is right, you stumbled across a one-person Dead and Company podcast. I almost named this Dead and No Company, but you all, the listeners, all three of you, are my company, so thank you for being here. If you're anything like me, you've been listening to a lot of Dead and Company lately. I've been watching the shows actually through nugs.net, but of course you can listen on Spotify and Apple Music and other streaming platforms. And I thought the other night, I want to talk about this. So I decided to start this podcast, and this is, of course, the first episode, and it could be the last. There could be 5 more, 10 more, 20 more. I really don't know. It all depends on my mood and if I want to keep doing it. But I do want to talk about the show I watched the other night, so here we are. If you want to pause, it is July 10th, 2022, Citizens Bank Park. You can go and listen and come back, or you can just hang out for the vibes and listen to me talk about the band. I'm going to talk about each set. I'm going to note my standout performer, and then I'm going to tell you the show that we're watching next. So to start set 1, we started with Truckin'. I like Truckin' as an opener, especially when Bob remembers the words, and John sounded great on his guitar, Jay on the drums. Let's just do it all. Jeff on the keyboards, Oteil on the bass, Mickey on the drums. I thought they all sounded really good, and I thought this was a great opener. Then we go into Watchtower. It was a really smooth transition. Everyone looked happy when playing Watchtower. I thought that was funny. Usually they're all in their own zone, kind of working on their own instruments, but they were having some camaraderie. It was fun to watch. Watchtower, of course, the Dylan song popularized by Hendrix. They go out of it into Here Comes Sunshine. I prefer Sunshine as an opener, so I wasn't completely sold when they started playing it, but then they teased China Cat, and I thought that was really fun, and of course it pays off later in set 2. We go from Sunshine and juxtapose that to Looks Like Rain, which actually caught me off guard. I thought this was a pretty song, especially towards the end. Jay was crescendoing, bringing the band back up and down. John sounded good on the guitar. Bob doing his thing. It worked for me. We go into Brown Eyed Women. Of course, a crowd favorite, one of my favorites. Jeff and John have amazing chemistry every time they play this song. What else is there to say? There was a funny moment during the lines I Cut Hickory. John takes his hands off the guitar and looks like he's about to chop the air, like he's cutting hickory. So I don't know if you can tell when listening to the audio if it's a little different, but it was funny to watch. We go into Estimated Profit. To me, that song screams set 2. I understand they play it during the first set sometimes, but it's a nighttime song to me. Something about the vibe of it. And then we close out with Deal. So all in all, such a solid first set. I mean, you have heavy hitters like Brown Eyed Women and Deal. You have some deep cuts like Looks Like Rain. And then you have some, just staples, Estimated Profit, Watchtower, Truckin'. I'm going to give this set an 8.9 out of 10, which is pretty high, probably among the higher ratings that you'll see. So a really solid first set. Then we go into set 2, Samson and Delilah to start it out. I've been enjoying that song lately. It sounded like they were teasing throwing stones at one point, particularly John. I have to go back and listen to the audio to see if that was just me or if that was intentional. Then we go into Help on the Way. I love Help on the Way, Slipknot, Franklin's Tower. But here they throw an audible and they go Help on the Way, Slipknot, China Cat. So we finally get that China Cat after they tease it, and Here Comes Sunshine. Then we go into Rider. The zone between China and Rider tonight, if I'm going to talk about anything on this podcast, that was awesome. It was so smooth. It was like a freshly paved road. Go back and listen to that China Rider, and in the middle of those two songs, when they're transitioning, it just sounds so nice. We go into Drums in Space and then come out of it with Cumberland Blues. I think that John gets a lot of props for Althea and Sugaree, and I mentioned Deal earlier as one of the songs that he plays really well on. But Cumberland Blues, maybe it's just Dead and Company in general, they do a really good job with that song, especially Jeff as well on the keys. And I just thought that, especially coming out of Space to pick things back up, that was a really nice fit right there for Cumberland Blues. Then we go into Days Between, and then we finally get to Franklin's Tower. So they did circle it all back. They finished the Help, Slipknot, Franklin trio. But I thought it was fun how they threw us through a little bit of a loop with China Rider beforehand. Overall, set 2, I'm going to give an 8.5. So if we add 8.9 and 8.5, that would be 17.4 out of 20 for the show. Again, I think that's going to be one of the higher show scores you'll see. I mean, I'm never negative. I always like everything the band does. But I'm going to try my best to give scores that accurately would apply. And I think that this was a really solid show. We close out with Broke Down Palace and Casey Jones. Broke Down Palace, such a good, sweet, serenading song. And then you go to Casey Jones, which is the train conductor off the rails. So that's a little bit funny. Again, some juxtaposition there. But I thought it worked well, and we get the rare 2-song encore. So a phenomenal night in Philadelphia. I would have killed to be there. If I could travel back in time, I absolutely would go to the show. Definitely going to rewatch it, though, and re-listen. That's the great thing about the community with Dead & Company and Grateful Dead, and the whole scene in general is all the recordings, and you were able to actually go back and re-experience these awesome moments. So definitely going to be keeping Citizens Bank Park July 10th, 2022 in my back pocket. Now, this was a quicker episode, I think, than maybe it will be when I get a little more settled in. Maybe I'll create some segments. One thing I do want to do is highlight the standout performer, and tonight for me, it was John. I kind of hate to do that on the first episode of the Dead & Company podcast, is give the standout performer to John Mayer and the lead guitarist of the band. But I think that he deserved it. I think he played really well. I thought Jay as well played great, and same with Oteil, and same with Jeff, and same with Bob, and same with Mickey. But I think John and then Jay stood out to me the most tonight, and maybe that was the mood I was in and the way I was receiving the music. But a great show. Next show we're going to watch for this podcast, if I ever get around to it, and this isn't the last episode, would be and will be, hopefully, July 5th, 2022, Xfinity Theater, Hartford, Connecticut. I just had to cut because the intro music was playing in, so they're running me off stage here. But yeah, Hartford, Connecticut, this was chosen randomly, same with the Citizens Bank Park show, so they're very close in sequence to each other, so we probably won't have many repeat songs, which is good. And the second thing I just want to note is see if John Mayer is wearing Sunnin. I noticed that tonight it looked like he had Sunnin in, so I want to see if that is actually the case. Thank you for listening to this first episode, sticking with me. If you liked it, stay along for the ride. If you didn't, you can just pretend that this never happened. But have a great rest of your day, and I don't have any particular sign-off, so have a good day.